am Becky B. the Book Dragon, and this is my podcast, Becca's Book Talks. I am here with the co-founders of Cosworth Publishing. I hope I said that right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome. And this is Jimmy Huston and Lynn Mills. So welcome.
It's Houston.
Houston. I'm sorry, Houston. So I got to actually see you two at the book fair at the book festival a couple of years ago, and I bought the teacher's bundle and Brianna London's Shanghai Torah story.
Uh-huh.
So, but I'd like to do the questionnaire first. So whenever you guys are ready, who wants to go first?
I'll go.
Okay. So based on the first question, what are the top 10, if you have top 10 books that have influenced your life and in your profession, whether it be personal narratives or stories that have left a lasting impression on you, and why?
Catch-22, funny, very funny, but horrifically real. The Crack in the Cosmic Egg, incredible insight into creativity. Something Wicked This Way Comes, amazing use of language to create a bone-chilling reality in the reader. Coming Attractions, Fanny Flagg's first and funniest book. The world she describes in her books is the world I grew up in, but again, more real. Franny and Zoe, don't know quite why, but it spoke to me. I didn't care for Catcher in the Rye, like everybody else. Slaughterhouse-Five, same comments as Catch-22, but more intense. Red Dragon, What Storytelling? The Woman Warrior, amazing communication of the spirit of the immigrant Chinese bidimensional existence. The Lord of the Rings, again, great storytelling made up out of nothing, yet astoundingly compelling and revealing. And Vienna's Waiting, my daughter's retelling of her life as a teenager in pain. I'm allowed as the father.
Yeah, that's right. Okay, Lynn?
Alice in Wonderland. That's it was my favorite as a kid, and it's still I just love that book, and I'll reread it sometimes. The Orphan Master's Son. It's a story about set in North Korea, and it tells the story of a spy for North Korea, and then he rises through the ranks, and it's just the story is fantastic, and the writing is good all the way through. It's just kind of lyrical, if you could imagine, a lyrical story about spies and any short story by Ray Bradbury. And I love I love science fiction with a human sort of touch, and anything by Kurt Vonnegut, especially Cat's Cradle and Slaughterhouse-Five.
I'm trying to think. He's not the one who wrote, oh my gosh, I just thought of the story. Something to do with a stowaway in space or something. I don't know if he's the one who wrote that same story, and I honestly cannot think of the title. It's on the tip of my tongue, but yeah.
Well, check him out. He's really good. I loved The Five People You'll Meet in Heaven. I saw that as one of your recommended books too, and I just love that book. There's a weird book that my husband got, very old, and it's called Rembrandt 1621 or something like that. And it was a really old book from, I don't know, the 30s or the 20s, and very thick, and it was fascinating because it gives you this whole view of Europe and adjacent Middle East back with the in Rembrandt's day. And then they go to the New World, and I mean, it's just really, it's told from the point of view of like his assistant or something. Haven't read it in a while, but it's really good, and I wish I could find it. It's somewhere in the house, or my youngest daughter took it. I don't know.
Yeah. Let's see. You also have Gabriel Garcia Marquez, 100 Years of Solitude.
Yeah, I love that. I love the whole dream world sort of thing and the whole family, you know, uh, the different generations um, and the mystical kind of side of the book. What else did I put? I can't remember now.
You also put Watership Down by Richard Adams.
I love that book. Yeah, I mean, it's a book about bunnies, and I started. He had me read it like a long time ago, and I'm like, it's about rabbits, and it just what the commentary on just the whole world. I mean, I have since I read that book like about 30 years ago. I will say this is like Watership Down. I'll make that comment when there's something weird happening or something, that's just, tragically threatening.
Mm-hmm. And then you also have Lamb by Christopher Moore.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's the true story of Jesus's best friend, Biff. So it's hilarious. And it's neither religious nor heretical. I don't know how he walked that line, but it's just kind of historical, I guess, and very, very funny. And one of Mary Magdalene. It starts when they're little kids, and Mary Magdalene hangs around with them. They're all buddies, and anyway, it's a really good book.
The last one you have is The Three Musketeers.
Oh yeah. What really impressed me the most is that book was written probably, what is it, like 200-300 years ago, and it read like something you would read now. I mean, it's so accessible, and I think that's, if people still want to read something that's been passed through that many generations, I mean, that's a really good book. And I found that also with Peter Pan. When I read it to my kids, I was like amazed at just how it felt like it was written just now. I mean, it was a really good book.
So from the two of you, but both of you basically love Ray Bradbury for sure.
Oh yeah. And Vonnegut. You mentioned Vonnegut too.
Vonnegut, yeah. I'm a total fan of Ray Bradbury's work. The only one that I had an issue with was his semi-autobiography. I saw a play of it first before I read the book, and it's Dandelion Wine.
Oh yeah.
I couldn't, for some reason, I don't know, I just couldn't get emotionally connected to it. My favorite above all is Fahrenheit. So So awesome. These are great titles. So of those 10, which of those books do you think is that you would recommend for today's readers, especially as of like when it comes to politics and everything with the book bans and all? Which ones do you think are suited? Which one would you definitely recommend for today's readers?
I love Catch-22. It's not exactly political, but it sort of reflects the world of politics in its own way.
How about you, Lynn?
Well, I was going to answer all of them, but you want something specific, don't you? I'd say Watership Down.
Watership Down.
Yeah.
I got maybe like halfway through Watership Down, and it was like there was just so many characters. There's so many rabbits to remember by name, and you're like, because rabbits they increase and multiply, so it's hard to keep track of who was who. Right. I did start. There's a favorite. I want to finish it. It's the one that I read from Richard Adams was Traveler. The one about Robert Ely's horse. Not sure if you guys heard of that one. It's a great story. It's literally told straight from the horse's mouth. So what was the last story that the two of you read?
Thinking in Pictures.
What is it?
Thinking in Pictures. Temple Grandin, who is the leading autism advocate in the world. It's her story about both growing up and and about how different her mind works than most people's minds, and linking those two worlds. It's pretty incredible, and just to see, one, how different our minds are, but two, that she managed to take a kind of thinking that is out of the usual and thrive despite that, and her inability to function in certain ways that she had real problems, particularly when it came to language and not the English language, but she had to learn French and math. Those are things that didn't translate to the way her mind works, and yet she still has a PhD and is a great spokesperson coming from a mindset where some people are unable to speak at all. And so fighting through that, it doesn't sound as interesting as it is, but it really is quite a story.
It's cool. And Lynn, how about you?
Well, I remember the last book I finished was Noir by Christopher Moore, and it's like a noir movie, but a book instead, and it's it's a lot of fun. He's a lot of fun, and right now I'm reading about 3 different books that one's in the bathroom, one's by the bed, and then but they're like as disparate as they can be.
Cool.
So.
And who's our third member of our little party here? Who's this?
Well,
this is Nikon.
Nikon.
Nikon?
Nikon, like the
Nikon.
camera. Because when she was a puppy, he's a professional photographer, and she went for his cameras.
She would try to eat the camera.
Yeah.
They were bigger than that.
That's cute. Are you guys taking part in any kind of reading challenge from the local library group at this time, or any other book club at this time?
No.
So what, you guys were on a book tour last I checked, right? Or that you were promoting the next phase of books that you're publishing?
That's mostly me. I'm sort of traveling around the country to a combination of book festivals and conventions for reading disabilities, therapists, teachers. Teachers are our best customers. Books on dyslexia, ADHD, OCD, autism, things like that. And so we try to reach that world, which is a combination of teachers, therapists, some doctors, and counselors and things like that. And so I go to various conventions in various places, and I'm on the road quite a bit.
Okay. Yeah, because I was just gonna say, in Brianna's video, which I finally got to editing and almost near completion. It's been a while, but I did mention that a lot of the students, were seeing an influx of students coming into our tutoring centers because of either reading disabilities, if they're dyslexic, or if they're not getting the one-on-one support. Have you guys seen any kind of changes or like challenges from what you've seen on the book tours?
Oh yeah, there's huge changes going on. A lot of the states have mandated testing for dyslexia for kids, and 1 in 5 people have dyslexia. Some people say it's 1 in 3, but that's a huge number. And so that means that 1 in 5 or 1 in 3 parents are suddenly confused about what is this going on with my child. And so they're looking for information, and so are the kids. So we have books that are designed for the parent and the kid to read together. They're kind of silly and entertaining for the kid, but they have good information in them that the parents need to know, and the parents are less likely to read them on their own. So reading them with the kids is a good thing to do. So there's confusion that's being sent around the country by state governments. And also the schools themselves, in many cases, are not helping because they don't have the expertise to really help the kids once they're diagnosed. And I hear stories all the time about schools that will not even tell the parents the result of the test, and certainly won't do anything to help the kids. So that's a problem. The other thing that's happening, the reason that you're seeing more people is that there's more awareness. It's not necessarily that there's a higher rate, but because of the testing in case of dyslexia and just the press on autism and ADHD and OCD as well, that a lot of people are becoming aware that there might be a problem, and they're going to, in some cases, experts, doctors, or whatever, who have more information now than they used to have, and they will either diagnose or suspect something. And another thing that's happened, particularly in the case of autism, is that they've changed the definition. So there are people who would not have been considered autistic in the past, because we used to think of autism as being pretty severe. And there was a less severe label that they would use, but it's all autism now. And so as the definition has expanded, and then more people have sort of gotten into the mix, it's become more common and more confusing at the same time. And there's another thing that goes on, which is that, particularly in the case of ADHD, and to some degree with everything, the definitions that the doctors use to define ADHD, I'm gonna make up some numbers because I don't remember for sure. But
Right.
let's say there are 11 different definitions, and if you have 6 of them, then you have ADHD. Well, if you have 5, you may not get defined, but you still have the same issues. And so there are people who are walking around who essentially have it but are not diagnosed. Well, you can have one. If you have one that's severe in your world, that's going to be enough to make you think, I have this, and maybe you need some help with it. So that's confusing too. So you can be told, no, you don't have it, when in fact you have to round it off to be defined as having it. So it's I won't say it's a mess exactly, but there's a potential for it to be a mess for any given situation.
So was there ever a book, a story or narrative that was a challenge for you to read through because of the content or the subject matter?
I don't particularly remember anything like that. And do you?
Not really the content. I just remember having, I was a creative writing major in college, and it was part of the English department. So you had to read a lot of, a lot of books, assigned books. And, some of the stuff was difficult for me to get through to read, there was, God, let me see.
Like, was it more like textbooks?
No, I'm talking about like Passage to India. That was hard to get.
Okay.
And stuff like that. Dostoevsky.
Right. So which book in your entire collection could you not live without, and why does that book hold special meaning?
For me, it's The Art of Creative Writing by Leos Egri. And he wrote several books. I was in the movie business for a long time, and one of his books is kind of the standard in writing drama. And this is the other book, which I find superior to the standard. And it really is something that I fall back on a lot if I'm writing, particularly a story, but it helps in other things as well.
Lynn, how about you?
Let me see. I guess I'd say Alice in Wonderland. So that's that's something you can reread, and it's not a kid's book.
It's
So
interesting that
many
you say
levels.
it's interesting that you're saying that it's not a kid's book. A lot of students are confused that I've met. They're confused. It's like, well, isn't it a children's story? I'm sort of like, yes and no. It's sort of like there's like different parallels and different, like, what do they call that? Like time portals throughout. So
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's kind of science fiction-y in a way.
True. Yeah, definitely. On the question about the biggest obstacle, what do you believe is the biggest obstacle facing our readers today in the wake of the current banned or challenge book lists from last year, considering students and teachers, school libraries, public libraries, and bookstore clientele?
Well, it's difficult because um, on the one hand, all books should be freely available to everybody. On the other hand, there are people who don't like a certain book have the right not to like it. I don't know if they have the right to ban it or burn it, but there's certainly disagreement in there about a lot of books on a lot of levels, and there's no answer that's going to please everybody, and there may not be an answer that's actually correct.
Right. I definitely agree with that. Yeah. Lindy, do you kind of have the same idea, or do you have something a little bit different to elaborate on that?
Well, I would just add that it seems like the people who are trying to, ban a certain book or take it out of a library or whatever are kind of, narrow in their focus and stuff, and they shouldn't be allowed to, voice that on the rest of us.
Very, very, very like authoritative, um, mandatory, but yeah, definitely a type of narrow-mindedness that is not open to diversity, right?
Right.
Yeah, and they tend to be loud,
Yeah,
loudest.
Diversity of
absolutely.
thought.
Absolutely. So are there any organizations or charities or special events taking place that our viewers should be looking into right now or participate in that you would want us to do?
I have a whole schedule laid out all across the country on our website, which is cosworthpublishing.com, COSWORTH. And I just counted today, this year I've had 28 different events. So I don't have one on the tip of my tongue. The next one is the Chicago Book Festival, which is in, I think, the first week of September. But after that, I go to the Mississippi Festival, and I go to South Dakota, and from there back to Georgia. I mean, it's just nuts. So, but a lot of conventions, like I say, for education and reading disabilities and book festivals.
Lynn, how about you?
I try to fill in when he can't. I mean, I try to join him for some of them, and then I try to fill in when he's got a conflict with, something that he should be one place and he's got to be another place.
It's amazing how many times these things conflict.
Yeah.
And it's such a specialized world that you have to take every opportunity to meet those people. And so sometimes we split up and one of us drives and one of us flies to somewhere. And
Thanksgiving weekend, we're going to Guadalajara.
Oh, wow. Cool. So will this be like a first international trip for the two of you to go there?
Well, I went last year. The Guadalajara Book Festival is the second largest book festival in the world.
Ooh.
It is enormous. They have 100,000 people a day for 10 days come through that place. They have booths that are bigger than our house.
Oh my God.
it's the largest Spanish-speaking book festival. It's the second largest book festival. There are people from all over the world with booths
Wow.
from the Middle East, from China, from Thailand, everywhere. It's just wild. It's like Mardi Gras for books.
Wow. I've never heard. This is the first time I've heard of that. I've heard of the festival. So which one is like is the number one book festival?
Frankfurt in Germany.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's kind of ironic. Frankfurt, Germany. Okay.
Yeah.
Huh.
But and the one in we now have 18 books in Spanish. Not that I write them in Spanish, but we've translated them, had them translated by experts. And so we're going to see if we can find some readers in Latin America and perhaps other places. We have followers of the Spanish books in Texas and somewhat in California. Those are the places that are the strongest, but we've had them, people buy them everywhere because there's Spanish people everywhere now. And oddly enough, well, we're in Austin a lot, Austin, Texas. Work with the Austin Independent School District some, and the second language in Austin is Spanish, as you might expect, and the third is Arabic. And so we have 3 books now in Arabic, and we may be doing more because it's surprising how many times people come to the Arabic books, and they say they have trouble finding Arabic books. And so we give them options to look at.
That's definitely different. So for the two of you, did you both start off in the film writing sector?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What were some of the films that you guys worked on?
Well, I worked on a number of things that you wouldn't have heard of, and a number that didn't get made. But the one that you might know is one called Running Scared. It was Billy Crystal and Gregory Hines were cops in Chicago for MGM. That was quite a few years ago now. But and I worked on one called My Best Friend is a Vampire. It's a comedy for kids that I directed, but I also did a little bit of rewriting on that. One called Wharf Rat that I wrote and directed for Showtime with Lou Diamond Phillips and Judge Reinhold in that. And
Oh, wow.
most of the things that you write in that world never see the light of day. I was lucky that I had a few come through. Oh, there's another one called Final Exam. It's a horror slasher picture from that period. You write paper movies that never see the light of day, and that's quite common.
Right. When did the two of you decide to create Cosworth Publishing? When was the inspiration behind that?
Well, it's really weird because our younger daughter, when she was in the 3rd grade, started writing a book, and she wrote it in the 3rd and 4th, maybe part of the 5th grade, and she finished it. And I told her that if she would finish it, we would get it printed, and we did. And so we needed a name for the company, so we named the company after our dog, Cosworth at the time. Cosworth is the name of a racing engine, and we both used to race cars in one period. And so we named the dog after a racing engine and then named the company after the dog. Anyway, so that was the first book. And a few years later, our other daughter, the older daughter, when she was in high school, she wrote a book about she had a serious pain problem for a few years. And so she wrote about that. And we published that. And again, we used the same name because we already had it. Mm-hmm. And then she wrote a second book in college. And at some point, it occurred to me that I had a few ideas that might be interesting to some people. So I started writing some, and we had the company name, so that became, I don't know that we would choose that name today, but that's what we had. And then Lynn wrote one, and then I wrote another one, and then she wrote another one, and it just kept going.
It just snowballed.
Most of them are children's books, and mine are generally silly. But Lynn has written some that are more serious, including one about suicide prevention.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah, that's what I was going to ask the two of you. So both of you have your own different writing styles and the subject matter. So Jimmy, what would be your two things? So what would be the subject matter that you're most passionate about, that you write about, and what is the target audience?
Well, both of my parents were teachers, so I grew up reading. But I had friends that didn't or couldn't read very well. And I got a lot out of reading. And so I believe that partly it's because I had the comedy background in the movie business. But I believe that if you make something entertaining and funny, kids will perhaps read it. They won't read something else. Mad Magazine being a good example of something that attracts people to read. And so I start with that. And then because both of our daughters and Lynn have dyslexia to some degree, one of them fairly serious, I wrote the dyslexia handbook, or the dyslexic handbook, and then it was well received. And so one of the daughters also has ADHD, and so I, with her, a little bit of help from her, I wrote the ADHD book, followed by OCD, which is her other issue, and Lynn has a little bit of that. Because we had some background in that world and some entertainment, they seem to be liked by people who are in those worlds. And then I didn't have any real information about autism or any understanding of it, but people kept asking me, do you have a book on autism? And so I spent quite a while trying to figure out how do you approach something that seemed to me to be pretty dark at that time. And I said that to a lady. I was at a book festival in Nashville, and she asked about that, and I said something along the lines that I was trying to write one, but it was hard because it was so dark, and she was taken aback, and she handed me her card, and she was some sort of president of some autism society, and she gave me a pretty good talking to about it. It's not dark. There's all this other stuff to it. And that sort of opened my mind in a different direction. And I was able to find out some information from people with it, from research and talking to therapists and autistic folks. And so I wrote that book. So I sort of meandered into that world without any qualifying experience or degrees. And so it's been interesting to flow through that.
It was interesting that I came upon your venue at the Los Angeles Festival of Books. I think it was a couple of years ago. And the reason why I was interested, and why I think yours was the first venue that I went to, was because I was trained as a behavior interventionist, and I was trying to get some more research materials, but I never saw books that were so inviting and so like, they're like little treasures that I just was like, why weren't these part of my training beforehand. I learned so much just from reading those books alone. And I love them. I have to say though, I found out a lot more about myself, and I was kind of the one that I actually was hyperventilating was the the fun book. I was like, I felt like I was reading my own story. And honestly, it was frightening.
Me too. I went through the same
Thank you.
thing.
I just was like, because this is some stuff that happened a few years ago that I still have yet to be resolved. But it's like, the more I read it, I was like, oh my God, I'm reading about myself. This is creepy. But I find it, yeah.
I hear that a lot. First of all, thank you for your
Endorsement.
your appreciation,
Yeah.
which I love. But I hear that all the time. I remember people, particularly with the OCD book, there'll be couples who are looking at it together and going, "That's you, that's you,
Yeah.
that's you, that's you, that's you." And the
Yes.
other thing that's been interesting is that, particularly with that book and the autism book, after people read it, they start naming people they know
Right.
who fit the definition.
Yeah, they're like,
And-
let's get that for so-and-so.
And not necessarily a
Oh my God.
diagnosis, but a recognition, and that's fun. And on the last trip I was driving to Philadelphia, and I had an idea for another book on autism, a very simple book. And I stopped and I made some notes. I'm driving from Los Angeles to Philadelphia, and for the American Library Association convention. And on the second day, I realized, wait a minute, this book is so simple. There's no illustrations or anything. I could do this in the hotel room tonight and ship it off to Amazon. They can have it printed and delivered to me in Philadelphia by the time I get there. And I did that. And it was really interesting because I had no idea how it was going to go over. And again, there was a couple, two 30-ish librarians who were looking at all of these books, and they were laughing through the various books. And one of them was on the autism book, and she said, I just found out that I have autism. And I said, oh, well, I pulled out the new book, and I said, well, you should take a look at this one. And this book is so simple that you can read it in a minute. And she stood there and she read the whole thing, and she was very complimentary, grunts and nods and stuff. And I said, so am I hitting the right notes? And she said, oh, well, you're hitting all the notes. And she started to cry. And she and her friend walked away, and one of the people at a neighboring booth came over to me and said, what did you say to that woman to make her cry like that? She was bawling when she went past me. So sometimes, even though I don't know what I'm talking about, they have some resonance that people recognize, and that has been really interesting because it not only sort of keeps me going, but it tells me what the audience is thinking. And it's a very small audience that we have for these books. And we're reaching an even smaller group of them. But it's really, really good when somebody comes in and tells you that I use this book with this particular student and it really helped them break through. Or we have one book that is a just really silly book. It's called the I Hate to Read book.
It's our most popular one.
Yeah, it is. And that book,
yeah,
I got a call one day from a teacher in Utopia, Texas, who had a grandson who was severely dyslexic. He was in the 7th grade, reading at a 4th grade level, and his aunt had given him that book, and he loved it. And it made so much difference to him that he memorized it, and he wanted permission to go around to the other schools in the neighborhood and read that in assemblies. And so That's pretty cool. And we have stories like that about some of the books that are enough to keep you going. So that's fun. I mean, it's a really silly book, but we have it in Spanish and in English, and we have it in Arabic.
That's funny because I mean, as a reader, I like words that fill a page, but I love how you have like this page here on page 12. Don't try to fool me with pictures. I hate to read.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's sort of like, was it this one or was it the other one? I'm not sure which one you had. Like you had pages of written words on like this one. I'm looking at it going, this reminds me of standards. So I'm not sure
Mhm.
how this one is supposed to fit.
Well, the thing is, if you don't like to read, then you don't want to be looking at a big page of text,
Right.
and
Yeah.
you want to be turning the page and feeling like you're getting somewhere and perhaps being entertained, and maybe there's a lesson hidden in there that you won't mind. And so that's sort of what we do. We have the I hate math too.
Yes.
And
I'm one of them.
yeah,
Yeah, me
Yeah.
too.
we have, but it's math teachers that buy that book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's the whole thing is it's kind of twisted and fun watching people's reactions, and generally they're pretty good.
Yeah. It's cool though. That's I love this I love this bundle. I took away a lot of notes from all 5 of them that I got. So thank you for writing that. And Lynn, how about you? What is your particular style and subject matter? Why do you tend to go more of like the dark themes? And then who is your specific target audience?
Well, the suicide prevention book is kind of a one-off sort of thing. It's and my other books are kids' books, and they're not dark at all. But it's actually it's written for the general public, and so it's written kind of in a light manner, and it's easy to understand. There's like sample dialogues, and there's a lot of case histories, and so it's not dark really, because what we're trying to do is, I mean, the basic message is, hey, isolation is breaking the isolation is the key, because what happens when somebody is suicidal, it's like they've got blinders on and all they can see is just tunnel vision and no light at the end of that tunnel. So a lot of people are kind of nervous to bring it up or anything, but we encourage you to ask somebody, are you suicidal? And most of the time they're relieved, because they want to, they don't want to do it, but they sometimes feel like they have no choice. And I mean, there are cases where people will not give you any clues, and you could be totally blindsided by it. But there are other people who want to be, they'll give you clues because they want to be stopped. And I have some great interviews with people who were suicidal at one time and no longer are, like in the last third of the book. And I interviewed one of the guys who jumped off the Golden Gate Bridge and lived. And he said, as soon as he vaulted over the railing, he was like, oh, this is a big mistake. And he wished he was back up there on the bridge. And somehow he survived, and he blacked out on the way down, he says, and he woke up swimming. His body was saving him.
I'm not sure when. I mean, he must have done that before they put, because I know now. Last I checked, I was doing. There was a documentary on the Golden Gate Bridge that they've now built some sort of net or like a barricade on both sides now to prevent people from jumping over.
Yeah, that's a very recent development. There was nothing for a long time, so that was a magnet for suicides.
Yeah. For your publishing company, I was just going to ask you, because it's so rare that I come across people who create their own independent publishing companies. What were some of the resources that you had to do? And like, did you have to, I guess the word I'm looking for is like, did you have to outsource on like where you sent your manuscripts for printing? And do you have a particular printing press there? Do you have your own independent, you know, way of getting the books put together? Or is it just through Amazon? Would it be through BookBaby? I don't know.
We do a number of things. Very little outsourcing. I was an art major in college, and among other things, Lynn and I put out a magazine for, I don't know, a few years about racing when we were racing. And so I understand how to do the layout and how to deal with printers, and I'm a photographer and I have an art background, and so I know about typography and all of that stuff. And Lynn was the editor of the magazine, so that she was monitoring a lot of writing and editing with a lot of different people writing. And so we have a background that touches in that world, even though I was sort of in and out of it throughout my life. And so at some point, I saw something that made me think, we could be doing children's books. And because I felt like we had many of the tools. In terms of printing, we are such a small outfit that we do print on demand. And rather than having thousands of books printed in China, we will print just a few. And if they sell, we'll print a few more. We'll print what we need. So going to on this trip, and I'm leaving on in September, I'm going to be gone for basically 2.5 months and go to, I don't know, 15 different events. I've got to take a lot of books, but it's still not crates and crates and crates of books. So I print what I think I need for that trip. And in fact, I will print about half what I think I need, and I'll have the other half scheduled to meet me somewhere along the way. There's a company called Ingram that is the largest company in the country, I believe, dealing with distribution of books, but they also deal with small guys like us, and they include printing, so that basically I can do a book, output it as a PDF, send it to them, and they can print as many as you want. One of the advantages of that is, first of all, it's very quick. Like when I was on the way to Philadelphia, in that case, I used Amazon because they were even quicker. But because you can make a few, you can look at it, get some reactions, make some changes, and update it as you go along. So you're not stuck with finding a typo or some bad information, and you have 2,000 books sitting in your garage or in a warehouse somewhere. So so that's how that part is done. And Amazon, of course, is available as an outlet, but they're useless to people who aren't already pretty high on the food chain there.
This is Ingram Spark?
Ingram Spark, right? Ingram and Ingram Spark. It's all the same company. They have a bunch of different names depending on what part of it you're using, and they're all over the world. And so I'm having them print books basically in Mexico for the Guadalajara trip. Anyway, so we have solved a lot of those problems on a small scale. The biggest issue we've had has been illustrators. We've had a number of people who have basically flaked out on us after stalling for a year or so, and then they sort of wander off. We have had some success with some illustrators, but typically I can go on Shutterstock, and Shutterstock has zillions of images. Many of them are useless and terrible and so simple they're useless for what we're doing. but occasionally you can find something that's really good. And then a lot of the times I will go in Photoshop and adjust it in some way, adapt it, change it. And that makes them a little more unusual. And so we do that.
And I just illustrated my first book like last year.
Which one was this? Which one was this?
Oh, and that's the Mariposito's Summer.
I have it here somewhere.
Yeah.
Here it is.
And I just got so tired of, waiting for illustrations from people. And I have like this, backlog of books that I've written.
Yeah.
But I can't bring out because kids' books have to have illustrations. So
mine don't.
Well,
Some of them do. This is her illustration.
Yeah.
Mariposita's Summer. Oh, pretty.
It's
Oh
in
my God.
Spanish and English.
Cool. And did you do all these illustrations in Photoshop or Adobe Illustrator?
So here's another one.
No, I did them with oh gosh, I can't remember the program. Oh, Clip Studio. Clip Studio Paint. And a tablet. And it's, it's a great program. And I learned a lot. I did, I didn't know what I was doing. I hadn't done that before. And anyway, I want to start on my other books that are, stacked up waiting for me to do the illustration.
Yeah, I didn't know. I was just going to ask Jimmy if you did any of the artwork yourself in any of the books that I bought from the teacher's bundle.
No, I did not. But I've had pretty good luck with that. We've done another thing that some people like. We have books that we do not illustrate, and we ask the kids to do their own illustrations. And some people like that a lot, and some people don't. But
I used to, when I was a kid, I had a few books where there were no illustrations. They asked you to draw this based on this description. But that's interesting. So I didn't know if you guys had used, when it came to illustrations, I didn't know if you guys had used, oh my God, what's the name of that company? I think it's called Fiverr. Fiverr.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But the book I just showed you, for instance, we have an artist working on illustrations, but while she's working, which is going very slowly,
it takes a long time.
We have this book that we can put out in the meantime and get people's reactions to it, and then hopefully when she comes out with the illustrations, it'll go that much farther. Now that I'm showing you books, I want to show you just real quick. This is the dyslexia book that you have.
Yes. Oh my God, that's wonderful.
As you may know from the book that you have, that it's written in a font that is meant to be friendly to dyslexia people and easier to read. Well, this is the Arabic version of that font. So even though it's Arabic, it is a dyslexic friendly font, which I found really interesting. I learned about that in January at an autism convention in Florida, and I came straight home and had the book translated into Arabic. We using that font.
That's interesting. Can you elaborate a little bit more on dyslexic friendly fonts and which ones they are?
Well, the one that I know by name is called Open Dyslexia. And that's the one I believe that's in the book that you have. But if you Google dyslexic fonts, I'm going to say a dozen come up, and some of them are free and some of them are not. And the research on this, it's very argued a lot about whether or not it works. I've had people come up to me, authorities at conventions and things, and say, the research does not show that this works. It's bogus. And within an hour, someone else will come up and thank me for using it because it makes them able to read. And so it's contested, but for some people it works. Like a lot of other things that don't work across the board, particularly with dyslexia. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So it has to do with, my understanding is it has to do with a combination of the spacing, the fact that each letter is different, whereas in typical alphabet or font, the letters are based on one shape. The A becomes the same as the D, becomes the same as much of the C and the O. They're all the same.
Yes.
And so these are slightly varied. It has to do with that, the spacing, and for some reason, the bottom of these characters typically is weighted more heavily. And so somehow some brains are able to make sense of it and some aren't. So it's something you try. If you have a dyslexic person that you're working with, you download the free fonts, put them on that person's computer, see if they help.
Can they be downloaded to like Microsoft Word, or is there a specific one that we need to use for that?
No, you can. It's wherever you can put a font and use it in whatever
Okay.
programs will read fonts from your computer. You can use these fonts and see if they help.
Right. So Lynn, you were saying that you're very highly dyslexic. How does that like at first, what happened that made you suddenly realize that you were dyslexic? And how does dyslexia, when a person with dyslexia is trying to read a page, what exactly are they seeing based on someone else who sees words on a page and they can read it with no problem? What is the vision? What's like the visual that you're seeing from that?
Well, I wouldn't say I'm highly dyslexic.
Okay.
It just, yeah, that's, our daughter is, our oldest daughter has more of an issue. But you know, I mean, it's not just looking at the letters, which will sometimes flip or something. Like for years, I thought idiot was adroit, you know, or I thought adroit was idiot. Yeah, one of the two. And you know, it's a lot of, for me, it was like skipping lines and then, or reading something over and over and over and over again, the same line, you know, and, or, you know, missing a whole paragraph or missing one word or something. And what really helped though was the fact that I grew up in the 70s and there wasn't as much screen stuff to look at. And I mean, because if I grew up now, I would just be watching music on YouTube and movies all the time. And you know, and so, you know, back then I was starved for entertainment, so I read and my parents were big readers too. And so, you know, that was my example. And you know, my mom used to say, for somebody as smart as you are the slowest reader I've ever seen in my life.
I used to say that too.
Yeah, and he would say that too.
Same thing.
So,
it was true.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting. Our older daughter, who has more serious dyslexia, she's written 3 books, but I mean real books, you know, not kid books, and I often say that that's more than she's read, because she doesn't like to read. She feels bad about it, and she can read. She has a master's, but she doesn't read recreationally because it's just too hard. And when she wrote her first book in high school, now I would do all of the punctuation and the spelling corrections and stuff, because when you don't read, you don't learn how that works. Right. But she did the writing, and when she finished it, and she turned to me and she said, I guess now I have to read it, because she had not read it. She didn't go back when she wrote a page or two. She didn't go back and reread it and fix it. She sent it to me, and so she had no idea what she had written in terms of the whole. But it's a
great book. I mean, she just spouted it out and it was great.
Yeah.
But you know, I think practice helps, and that's what helped me. You know, I just read a lot, and then I would recognize, like, oh, I'm doing that again. And, you know, if I make a weird dyslexia mistake or something like, oh, that happened again. Okay.
Right.
And then or it's say, that doesn't make sense. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah.
As she was growing up, Georgia,
Georgia, okay.
Our daughter.
Our daughter, we knew she was dyslexic. I'd been exposed to it in various other ways, and we talked about it, and she knew it, but there wasn't really anything to be done. And so she sort of fought her way through school and got to college. And when she got to college, her job was working in the disabilities office. And she saw all these people coming into the school to get help, and that there was no shame in it. And so she said, well, I would like some help too. And they started giving her the resources, and she became an A student just like that. She just really took off because she was already smart. She was just having trouble reading. And so they gave her more time on tests, more time for assignments, which is a huge thing, as simple as it is. They gave her audiobooks in some cases and things that she listened to instead of reading. And she said the thing that helped her the most was some sort of device or software that would read something out loud to her and light up the words as the voice went along from word to word. So it was reinforcing what she hears with what she sees. And she said all of a sudden things started to click. And it was just amazing how much difference it made. And she graduated with honors. And when she did that, I said, Georgia, we always knew that you were smart. And she said, I did too, but I didn't have any way to prove it. And that's what life is like. When I figured that throughout her school career, dyslexia was probably worth a letter grade on every test she ever took, you know, because she would, even in the 3rd and 4th grade, she would bring home a test that she'd taken. And I would say, I know that you know this, the answer to this question. Read me the question. And she would get it wrong in reading it. She would leave out a word.
Like not.
That would change the whole question.
Completely changes the
And
sentence.
so I'd say, read it again. She'd leave it out again. I'd say, read it really slowly. And she would come to that word and she would go, oh, because she knew the answer. She didn't understand the question. And so that's what these people are dealing with. It's different for everybody, you know, everybody's experience, everybody's sensations, everybody's input is different. And their mind is different. So they interpret things differently, but there are consistent things that occur with dyslexia, and she had a bunch of them. And she's doing great. You know, she's a therapist now, and doing really well. And I'll tell parents with dyslexia all the time that there's nothing they can't do. It's just harder.
But I took away something from what you said, that there was help with no shame. I love that they were, I mean, tell me, is this something that you're seeing a lot less of because of what's been going on? Like, people are so afraid to get help because they feel that they're going to be shamed. Is that still something that you're witnessing?
Well, I don't see that particularly a lot anymore, but what I have seen and heard is people that don't want to be diagnosed because they don't want to be labeled officially, because schools, they believe, and it's probably true in some cases, schools know that people coming in with these issues will cost them more money because they have to then provide these services. And so this starts in grammar school, in elementary school, where schools fight this because it will cost them money and resources. And so they don't identify people, or the parents know that if they get identified and then when they try to move up to a different school, they may be discriminated against. So that is definitely going on. And it's not just dyslexia, it's any of these things that you get identified by. but you need to do that in order to get help so that you can function. So, in my opinion, you're probably better off going to a lesser school that's more responsive than going to a better school that wants to exclude you because
Yeah,
they want to save money.
that's interesting though, because I was reading about both of these high schoolers graduated, but they had no clue how to properly read anything. And I question, it's like, well, what did the schools miss that these kids caught on early, and why were they not taken seriously? Um, when it comes to the type of reading difficulties that you guys have seen, do you think that there needs to be at least a reading specialist for every school to make sure that students who are having that kind of trouble don't miss out?
Well, sure, and a lot of them do. Teachers, the good teachers will have a sense of who needs what to some degree. They may not be diagnosing something in a test-worthy manner. But what these kids really need is parents who are advocates, because it's the willingness to go in and create whatever havoc it takes to get your kid the help that they need, because it's not just about getting through the third grade. It's about every grade after that, and every step after that. I was at a dyslexia convention many years ago before I even got involved with this. And there was a judge there from Louisiana, and he gave a talk on the fact that the prisons are filled with dyslexia, with dyslexic people. And the reason makes perfect sense. In the early years of elementary school, kids don't want to be made fun of, right? And so there are times when people have to read out loud, maybe at the board or maybe just from their desk. And if they can't do it, they get teased, and sometimes viciously teased, and that lingers and lasts. And so some kids would rather act up and get kicked out of class than be made fun of. Well, you get kicked out of class enough times, you eventually get kicked out of school. You get out of school, you're not educated, you're not going to get much of a job. Well, that tends to, in many cases, lead to some kind of criminal activity that they get caught on, and they get in the system that they can't cope with. And suddenly they're in prison with a lot of other dyslexic people who went through the same cycle. And it's pretty common. And
Wow.
if you make that statement that prisons are full of dyslexic people to people in that world, they will agree.
Wow. So as writers, let me see if I can find this one here. What would be like your top, for something like this, what would be your top resources that you would advise writers who want to write children's books or like general infographic books like these? What would be like the top resources and advice that you would give them if they
Well,
wanted to go into this field?
the resources are talk to people who are either experts or going through it, which may be two completely different sides of the coin. There is always a library of information, both in an actual library and the internet. The internet tends to have every possible thought about every subject, so it may or may not be helpful or correct. But in terms of advice, I would say simplify. The easier it is for people to understand. It may be telling a story, might be an illustration, but long paragraphs may cause somebody to close the book when they first pick it up. And so I think it's good to have the truth to the extent that you can. Some things there is no simple truth. Sometimes there's shades, and sometimes there are other sides to the story, different opinions. But make it so that, particularly if you're dealing with kids, people can understand it easily, and maybe make it enjoyable, pleasant, maybe even humorous.
Cool.
Although everybody can't do humor, but everybody can do simple.
Yeah, true. True. Lynn, any elaboration?
Well, I'm thinking about, how we approached the books when we started writing. And I think our screenwriting backgrounds helped because, you want to write simple dialogue and descriptions in a screenplay, and you want to, evoke pictures in the reader's mind. And so it's kind of like, that's the way I approach it. And that's also how I approach the illustrations that I did. I as I was writing it, I was thinking of, this would be a good picture, and this would be a good place to have this, and da 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 da. And it's kind of like a little mini published movie in a way, because you got less pictures, but it's similar.
As a screenwriter, what's because I've taken classes in script writing, but what is like the main program that you use for writing scripts?
Movie Magic Screenwriter. It's a real good program. It's been going. They've had it for 25 years. And just keep upgrading and upgrading and upgrading. But it's easy to do, and there's a lot of stuff you can do with it. I just stuck with the one that I started with a long time ago. And
well, I started before there were computers really, but before there was software for it. And we used just WordStar, which was a word processing program many generations ago. And there was a separate program that we used that would sculpt. It was a key. You could assign strokes to a key, and so it would do the indentations to the proper smart key, I think it was called.
Yeah, smart key.
Just proper place for a character name or the dialogue or whatever. And so it was a combination of that too. And then Scriptor came along, and then Scriptor basically evolved in the one she's talking about.
Scriptor, okay.
That Scriptor became Movie Magic, I believe. And there is another program, but this is the one that we use simply because of the way we came up through it.
Yeah, there are a number of different programs.
As independent publishers, what would be your advice or tips for anyone who wanted to become their own independent publishing company? The second is it harder to do that without having an agent represent you through a bigger publishing company like Simon & Schuster, Penguin, Hyperion? What is it called? Hyperion?
It's infinitely harder. However, it's also infinitely faster. Because if you write a book and you want to send it to those people and get them on board, well, you're going to need an agent. You're going to go through that process, which is going to take a long time. And then they're going to start sending it to publishers, which is going to take a long time. And then if they like it, they're going to change it probably, and that will take a long time. And then the printing and release and publishing or publicity process takes a long time. And so you can write a book and spend years, if you get it out at all, spend years getting it out, or you can just do what we did and do it and have it out
overnight
within
sometimes.
a week, within a short time. Once you finished it, it happens fairly quickly. But nobody cares because nobody knows it's out.
Right.
Amazon is promoting other people who
Yeah,
have sold more books, and the stores aren't interested. And so you have to find your own outlet. A lot of people are very successful with social media. I really don't like social media, so we have been really late to that game and not really playing it very well. So I do this other thing instead, and it has marginal results, but you just keep going in the hopes that it'll click. So it is. I wouldn't necessarily recommend it, but I also wouldn't recommend the other route. It's also, it depends on what you're doing. For instance, for whatever worth there is to them, I've gotten, I don't know, 25 books, and Lynn's gotten 4 or 5 that we got out that people have bought and read, and in some cases reacted to. And in that same time, I would be lucky to have gotten one out. Perhaps if it was good enough, it would have been more successful. On the other hand, it would be a process in which it's not the book that I'm necessarily trying to get out. It's something that's been amended to meet whatever the publisher is looking for at that time. So that's, would I recommend it? Not particularly, but it's what we've been doing. And if you've ever sent anything away to strangers in the business to react to, it's slow and ugly. I think is the best way to say it. I know a lot of people who've been quite successful with that, with a book or two over a long period of time. But my ideas are usually fairly simple and quick and simple, and probably don't require that road.
but it's been building every year, little by little, and it's interesting when we go to the things like the LA Book Festival, or whatever festival we're at. It's interesting to watch people actually looking at your stuff and reading it and reacting to it, and and then buying it, and people will come back and they'll say, "Oh, I remember you guys from last year. I bought this book and this book and this book, and what do you have new?" And so it's kind of gratifying to meet your public,
Exactly. This is a book that Lynn wrote when she was a kid. Her parents didn't want her to have a dog, and so she wrote this to help other kids who want a dog convince their parent that they're ready. And it has good things in it. It's very cute, a lot of information.
Great pictures.
But we've had people who buy it who come back a year later to the same booth and say, "Oh, thank you, we got our dog." And the parents say, and they knew what to expect.
And I've had people come back and say, "Your suicide book saved my sister, and she's happy now, and she's engaged, and blah, blah, blah." And, which is just amazing,
It is. Jeez, that is really cool. So when it comes to the book festival, do you guys have like your own specific booth or setup that you have to provide to the Festival of Books committee to be part of to be like one of their vendors?
Oh, they just want money.
They'll take anybody. They even took us.
They don't take anybody, but they will take a wide variety of things depending on the festival. I know that some of the festivals will check our website. For instance, I entered the one in Guadalajara, the big festival, and a few months later, I got a letter or an email from them saying, "Now that we've seen your books, we want to offer you a special display for all of the dyslexia and the OCD and ADHD books as a, I forget what they call it, but anyway, a special display and
An extra
in
place.
addition to the booth. And so, you know, they do look to see who you are and what you've done. And so on our website, we have a list of all the places that we go so that they know that we've done this before, that we're not, because when you apply to a place that's 1,000 or 2,000 miles away, they certainly don't necessarily know you. So anyway, it helps to have some sort of representation for that. And but we have, they usually provide tables and chairs, and then when you're on your own after that, we have our own signage. We have you know, boxes and boxes of books, and we have various things.
Racks and
Racks,
things that
yeah.
we put the books on.
Yeah.
When it comes to the signage, is there a particular company that you guys prefer using?
Well, I've been using FedEx, FedEx Office, and we've done posters. You can, if you go on our website and look at the exhibition pages, you'll see what we're doing. And those signs are, I think they're 6 feet wide and maybe, I think that maybe three or 4 feet high. But they're not that high now, but they print a sign that big, and they're vivid colors and stuff. So they hold up pretty well. So usually they last a year or two. And different people at different booths have different kinds of signage. There's a whole industry into these booths. You go to some of these places and they're enormously complicated
Really slick.
and huge. You know, again, the size of houses. When you have
Yeah.
a giant publishing company, you can basically build a house inside one of these centers, convention centers,
Yeah.
and so it's hard to compete with that. But there we are. There we are.
Pop.
Yeah.
It's cool though. What was Jimmy, I think you sent me something about your latest publication on neuro and neurodiversity. Can you elaborate what you've done with that one?
Nuts, nerds, savants. This is about creativity and neurodiversity, because as I'm learning about all these other subjects, one of the things that you discover is that there are so many brilliant people who have been afflicted with OCD or ADHD or dyslexia or autism and done just fine. Thank you very much. In fact, they have created our universe. Again, Temple Grandin, the autism spokesperson, had a statement some time ago, a pretty famous statement, that if it weren't for the people with autism, we would still be standing outside the caves just chatting away and instead of getting the work done, because the examples of people with neurodiversity are just enormously extravagant. They're just everywhere. Musicians, artists, philosophers, inventors, particularly mathematicians. It just goes on and on. The science of our civilization would not be there without these people. And so I've always been interested in creativity, and I sort of started seeing, well, look at that. And so this is the book that I mentioned that is our sort of attempt to explain to kids in particular, although adults get the same idea, is that, you know what, you're going to be just fine.
Yes.
You know, you're going to be just fine. There's a lot of people on this path ahead of you who have done just great. And so it's a really positive and I think really good book. It has lists of people as examples of people who have been successful. And of course, it's easy. Here's a page with pictures of Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs, Bill Gates, and Jeff Bezos, who all have something wrong with them, right? And
They're doing fine.
and most of them dropped out of college or
Yeah.
whatever. And so, in fact, I have another book about that. Don't go to college, go to Europe
for less.
and the idea, the first paragraph of each chapter is about a famous successful dropout. This one is Amelia Earhart, successful up to a point. Mick Jagger dropped out of the London School of Economics to sing with a childhood pal, right? And Robert Fulton had an early education at a Pennsylvania Quaker school before abandoning it with a lure of London, where he hoped to become a painter. And it just goes on and on. Charles Dickens quit school and his father went to debtor's prison.
That I remember.
Davy Crockett ran away from school at 13, preferring a life as a game hunter, a buckaroo on cattle drives, and farmer. So I think the anomalies, the people who are the exceptions, are a lot more interesting and offer a lot more insight in ways than the people that we would typically think of as the role models for success. And so college is not the end all and be all. And creativity, again, I keep going back to that, is really, really important and will absolve you of a lot of lesser problems.
Well, it's thinking out of the box.
Yes.
Because we're all led into the same box, and then there's some of us some of them who are more,
Yeah, exactly.
get out of the box. They expand.
And Lynn, was what is it called? Mariposita Summer. Was that the latest one that you worked on, or are you currently working on another one that's been published?
Well, that's the latest one that came out. Yeah.
We have a Spanish only version of that as well.
And that was based on a true story or similar, sort of true story. My kids and I, we had one of those butterfly boxes, and we raised them, let them out, and one of them was still in the box, or he was just flopping one wing. And anyway, so we thought, okay, well, it'll dry out, and the other wing, and he will fly away eventually. He didn't, and so he ended up as their pet, and he lived like 3 times longer than a real, than a butterfly in the wild. And he would sit on their shoulders and watch TV with them, or walk up and down their arms, and go to school for show and tell. And anyway, so I always wanted to write some sort of story with that, and it had various iterations, and then I decided, well, how about a story of a little girl whose grandmother comes from Mexico, and to live with them, they can't speak each other's language, and they bond over this crippled butterfly that the little girl finds that, at school, because it didn't fly out of the box.
Right.
And so,
and Mariposa is butterfly. So Mariposita would be little butterfly?
Yep.
Yes.
Yep.
Cool. That's awesome. What I loved about all the books that I got with the teacher's bundle was that at the end of each one, it basically said, name it, like, give it your own, give it like your own cool, not a disease, but to give it like a new, what's the word I'm looking for here? Give it like its own title, like give it's your own. I can't think of the word right now, but like give it your own, instead of being labeled ADHD or dyslexic or neurodiverse or whatever. You basically allowed the ones who read it to like give it your own uniqueness.
Well, I typically say that you take the word disorder out of OCD.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And you take it out of ADHD. And because disorder colors it so much
Mhm.
that by not doing that, you can just be quirky.
Right.
Yeah. Now, you had asked about this book, which as if it was the last book, and I just want to mention that's not the last book.
Right.
The last book is the one that I did on the way to Philadelphia, which is this book.
Huh.
See, I am autism, I am autism, I am autism.
Interesting.
And it starts, it's quite simple, but it starts with, I get right to the point, is what that says. And people pick that up and they go, oh yeah. And because that's autism,
Yeah.
they don't beat around the bush. They don't make the small talk. They get right to the point. And so there's a lot of stuff like that.
That's cool. My question is, I was looking at the cover of the OCD Fun Book. How did you guys manage to get this type of cover for this particular
Well,
book?
that's a bubble wrap cover, and I cut that by hand and adhere it to the table to the cover, and people like it, so I do it.
I was just gonna say, I don't think Ingram does a book cover like with this type of
No,
material.
nobody does. So if you want to be unusual, you have to be unusual. You can't dial up everything on the internet. You have to sometimes scramble a little bit. So we have big rolls of bubble wrap that are adhesive backed, and you just sit there and you just cut them out and stick them on and then sell them.
Yeah.
And people really get a kick out of that cover.
Yes, because this is like a therapeutic. I'm not even sure what this is like what is that called? It's like I guess it's like stimulation or something.
Well, it's just fun. It's just silliness, and but it's a compulsion for some people.
Yes.
And there are people who will sit there and pop every one of those bubbles and more. There are also people who honestly run away screaming because they can't be confronted with that. So that happens to me not so often, but it's happened more than once.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, but this was the one where I read like the first 3 to 4 pages and I was hyperventilating. I'm like, oh my God, do I need to continue with this? I don't know.
It's a strange book, and but about the cover, I had sent one to a lady in Arkansas who she teaches teachers about dyslexia, teaches dyslexia teachers how to teach dyslexic students. And I sent her one, and she sent me a nice little thank you note. And then she admitted later that she spent a long time trying to peel the cover off because she thought it was packing material. So she didn't get the joke for a while. So you never know. You never know.
And the other one was, I have the catalog of the books here. I have the Dyslexic Handbook, the Genius Edition, and then this is the Attention Deficit Disorder Hyperactive Cookbook. I was just looking at like the recipes, and it's like it tells you to skip the pages ahead, and that's just that was actually genius. But these pictures here are like all the famous people on this one here, mostly musicians. But this is just like this one is going to have you bouncing all over the place.
Well, the pages are out of order. They're upside down. They're sideways. And one of them you have to hold up to a mirror, and one you have to email us, and we email you the secret page. So it's a little bit of an adventure or a game or a puzzle. So it fits that particular personality in many cases.
As part of the finale, what would your message be for today's viewers? As people who write books such as these and with different content, what would your message to the world be? When it comes to your company, or when it comes to writers, when it comes to reading, what message would you like to leave the viewers?
Well, read a bunch of different things, read different thoughts, and reach out to different worlds and see what you turn into, because you'll have new thoughts.
Write some of those thoughts down. Maybe write a book yourself.
Have you guys been approached about maybe having your books become part of the American Library public system?
No.
Okay, I didn't.
Some small little town libraries, you know, like we'll go to Austin and, you know, and like a small town nearby will, you know, say, oh yeah, I gotta take this back to my colleagues. You know, we should have these in our library or something like that. But, you know, like not like, you know, a big system like LA or something like that. Be nice.
Cool though. I definitely would recommend these books for special education teachers, general teachers as well. And including, like I said, I wish I had these books as part of my training as a behavior interventionist. So
Well, thank
there's
you.
been a lot of great insight from these. So thank you for making them. Thank you for publishing them. And maybe one day I can stop by to see the Pulp Publishing biz. That'd be cool.
It's our house.
Yeah.
It's a little part of the house. But
cool,
yeah,
though.
that'd be great. So
Yeah.
sure.
Awesome. Thank you, Jimmy, and thank you, Lynn, for taking the time out tonight to talk to me about this wonderful publishing venture and about the wonderful books that you guys have written. And I look forward to the next ones.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay.
We enjoy it.
And I will also let Brianna know, because I loved her book as well, which I finally got through that. So yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You guys have a wonderful night, and good luck on the Guadalajara one. I'm gonna have to look into that too.
Yeah, that's great.
All right.
All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Good night, you too.
Night
Bye.
back.